When he finally resurfaces after that long stretch of radio silence, after leaving you suspended in uncertainty and questioning your own value, that is not your signal to leap back in. That is your signal to pause and think. Welcome back to Pashi Lens. This specific moment is not about romance. It is not about hope. And it is certainly not about potential. This is entirely about awareness, because silence exerts a profound force on the human psyche. It strips away the illusions. It lays bare the truth. If you utilize that period of distance correctly, you didn't just spend your time missing him. You spent it meeting yourself. Let me be absolutely clear about this first step. The most critical thing you must do when he reaches out from the void is to remain completely composed. You cannot, and I repeat, you absolutely cannot allow your temporary emotions to take the wheel in this instant. Emotions are incredibly loud, but they are rarely wise. They will urge you to rush. They will induce a convenient amnesia. Your feelings will attempt to rewrite history in a heartbeat if you permit them to. And this is not the time to forget. You see, raw emotion will have you texting back immediately, answering that call before you have even considered your own well-being. They will make you gloss over every night you spent crying, every day you spent waiting, wondering why he vanished, asking yourself what you did wrong, and wondering why your love wasn't enough. And now, simply because his name has appeared on your screen, your heart wants to pretend nothing happened. But something significant did happen. You grew. You endured. You learned. And you cannot betray that version of yourself now. You've got to breathe. You've got to pause. You've got to get still, because that message, that call, it's not proof of love. It's not proof of change. It's not proof of intention. It's simply information. And information should be processed, not reacted to. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is one of those moments. If you don't slow down, you'll fall right back into an old pattern and call it destiny. That message is a test, a quiet test, a psychological test. It's a test to see if you learned your worth while he was gone. A test to see if you confuse attention with intention. A test to see if access to you is still free. And you cannot pass that test if you respond from excitement instead of self-respect. You pass that test when you respond from a place of calm, from a place of strength, from a place where your self-respect speaks louder than your emotions. And that kind of strength doesn't rush. That kind of strength observes. Now I know how it feels. I know it feels good when he finally reaches out. It feels like relief, like something unfinished just knocked on your door, like maybe your prayers were answered. And your mind starts whispering, maybe he missed me. Maybe he realized. Maybe I mattered more than I thought. But slow down. Don't let your mind write a love story before you even know why he showed up. Because sometimes, people don't come back because they value you. Sometimes they come back because they see you've moved on. Because they sense you're no longer emotionally available in the same way. Because the ego hates losing access. And if you're not calm, you won't be able to tell the difference between love returning and control knocking. Carl Jung also said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." Some people reach out not because they've healed, but because loneliness finally caught up with them. Some reach out because distraction ran out, and some reach out because they want reassurance, not reunion. Calmness is what allows you to see that truth without romanticizing it. So when you see that message, look at it, acknowledge it, and then put the phone down. Go take a walk. Go sit in silence. Go pray. Go journal. Do anything but react immediately. Because reaction is the language of wounds. Reflection is the language of healing. Give yourself time to let that initial rush settle. Because once your heart calms down, your mind gets clearer. And when your mind is clear, you stop choosing what feels good right now and start choosing what protects you long term. That's maturity. That's power. Ladies and gentlemen, too many people fall back into the same trap because they answer too fast. Because they let a spark of hope override a mountain of evidence. Because they confuse familiarity with safety. Don't be one of them. You are not desperate. You are not incomplete. You're not waiting on someone to validate your existence. You are whole right now, whether he calls or not. And when you stay calm, you send a message not just to him, but to yourself. You tell yourself that your feelings matter, but your peace matters more. You tell yourself that you are no longer led by impulse, but by intention. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Silence transformed you. Pain transformed you. Awareness transformed you. Don't undo that transformation just because the past knocked politely. So when he reaches out, let him wait. Let him sit with uncertainty for once. You've sat with it long enough. Let him feel what it's like not knowing where he stands. Not as revenge, not as punishment, but as balance. And in that space, you get to ask yourself the most important questions of all. Do I even want to open this door again? Does this connection still align with who I am now? Is this man worth disturbing the peace I had to fight for? You can only ask those questions when you're calm, because calmness is where your wisdom lives. Calmness is where your intuition speaks clearly. Calmness is where the real version of you shows up, not the wounded one. Not the lonely one. Not the version that just wants to be chosen. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." This is not the moment to dream about what he might become. This is the moment to look inside and honor who you've already become. So stay calm, Queen. Let the phone ring. Let the message sit there. Let the world keep moving. You stay still because that stillness is not weakness. That stillness is strength. And strength is exactly what you need when the past comes knocking, pretending it has changed. And from that calm place, from that grounded place, the next steps will reveal themselves clearly. Now, let's get real about something most people skip right over. When he reaches out after being silent, you cannot just focus on the fact that he showed up. Presence alone does not equal purpose. A knock on the door does not mean you have to open it. This is where discernment comes in, because not every message is an invitation to reconnect. Some messages are invitations to repeat a lesson you already learned the hard way. You've got to look deeper. You've got to assess his true intentions. And I don't mean listening to the surface-level words, the casual, "How you been?" the nostalgic tone, or the sudden warmth that feels familiar. Familiarity is dangerous when you haven't healed all the way. Familiarity can trick you into thinking something is safe just because it feels known. But known does not always mean healthy. Men, just like anyone else, reach out for many reasons. Some of them noble, some of them selfish, some of them unconscious. He might be lonely. He might be bored. He might have hit a wall with someone else. He might be missing the comfort you provided. Or yes, he might have genuinely realized he mishandled you and wants to do better. But here's the truth. You will never know which one it is if you only listen to what he says. Words are cheap when someone has already shown you silence. This is where you ask yourself the questions that protect you. Why now? Why after all this time? Why after the distance, the absence, the confusion? What changed, and more importantly, what didn't? Is he reaching out because he's grown, or because his circumstances changed? Is he coming with clarity, or is he fishing for reassurance? Is he here to rebuild, or just to feel wanted again? When you start asking these questions, you shift from being emotionally reactive to psychologically grounded. And a grounded woman is powerful. A grounded woman doesn't get swept up by timing alone. She understands that timing without effort means nothing. You see, intention is not proven by words. Intention is proven by behavior over time. Real intention is patient. Real intention is consistent. Real intention doesn't rush you, pressure you, or make you feel guilty for needing clarity. If his intention is genuine, he won't mind you taking your time. He won't mind answering real questions. He won't disappear the moment the conversation stops being light and convenient. But if his energy changes the second you slow down, if he gets irritated when you don't respond quickly, if he avoids accountability and redirects the conversation back to flirting or nostalgia, pay attention. That's not love. That's access seeking. That's someone testing whether they can still reach you emotionally without doing the work. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why observation matters more than conversation. Conversation can be manipulated. Energy cannot. Pay attention to how you feel when you interact with him. Do you feel calm or anxious? Do you feel respected or rushed? Do you feel grounded or emotionally stirred up? Your nervous system will tell you the truth faster than your heart will. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." If his reappearance suddenly brings confusion, anxiety, or emotional chaos back into your life, that irritation is information. It's showing you what you've already outgrown. Watch for consistency. Does he follow through on what he says? Does he show up when he claims he will? Does he maintain the same energy over days, not just moments? Or does he disappear again once he gets a response from you? Patterns don't lie. People rarely change patterns unless they've done deep internal work. Also, notice this. Is he taking responsibility for his absence? Or is he glossing over it, like it never happened? Is there a genuine apology, or just a casual re-entry? Someone who truly values you will acknowledge the pain they caused without minimizing it. They won't say things like, "I was busy," or "life got crazy," as a way to dodge accountability. They will name what they did. They will own the impact. They will respect your healing process. And if you ask for clarity and he deflects, if you ask for consistency and he hesitates, if you ask for intention and he gives you ambiguity, that is your answer. Ambiguity is an answer. Confusion is an answer. Mixed signals are an answer. Ladies, don't let your ears blind your eyes. Don't let sweet words override past behavior. Don't let nostalgia rewrite reality. Look at the whole picture, the history, the pattern, the energy, the effort. This is where many people fail themselves. They want the outcome so badly that they ignore the process. But love that skips the process usually skips the healing too. And unhealed people repeat cycles, not relationships. Ask yourself this: is he asking about your feelings, or is he focused on being forgiven quickly? Is he curious about who you are now, or is he trying to pick up where things left off? Is he building trust, or is he trying to bypass it? Trust is not rebuilt through words. Trust is rebuilt through time, patience, and consistent action. And if he's not willing to invest those things, then what he wants is not connection. It's convenience. Ladies and gentlemen, never ignore the early signs. Red flags don't scream. They whisper. They show up subtly. A dismissive tone, a lack of follow-up, a rush to intimacy without emotional repair. Those whispers are messages from your future self saying, Pay attention now so you don't have to heal later. So when he reaches out after all that silence, don't rush to label it. Don't rush to hope. Don't rush to reopen your heart. Stay observant. Stay grounded. Stay honest with yourself. Because your worth is not proven by someone coming back. Your worth is proven by what you allow when they do. And until his intention matches your standards, you owe him nothing more than your awareness. From here, the path becomes clearer. Not because he explained himself perfectly, but because you learned how to read what's beneath the surface. And when you move like that, you don't lose yourself anymore. You protect yourself. And protection is the highest form of self-love. Now, this is where things get even more serious. Because once you've stayed calm, and once you've begun to assess his intentions, the next thing that must stand tall is your self-respect and your boundaries. Not your feelings, not your memories, not the version of him you hoped he would become. Your self-respect and your boundaries must lead, because they are the only things standing between growth and relapse. Self-respect is not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up in what you allow and what you refuse to entertain. It's the quiet voice inside you that says, "I remember how I felt when you were gone." It's the strength that reminds you that just because someone returns does not mean they are entitled to the same access they once had. Too many people abandon their standards the moment the past shows interest again. The moment that name lights up their screen, all the promises they made to themselves during the pain disappear. The door that was locked swings open without questions, without conditions, without reflection. And that is how people end up back in cycles they prayed to escape. Because people will treat you exactly how much you allow them to. If someone learns they can disappear, reappear, and still receive warmth, attention, and emotional access without accountability, they will repeat that behavior. Not because they are evil, but because boundaries were never enforced. But when self-respect enters the room, the dynamic changes. Self-respect means you don't let someone's return erase their absence. It means you don't let a soft tone today cancel out the emotional damage from yesterday. It means you understand that love is not proven by words spoken after silence, but by consistency shown over time. And boundaries are not punishments. Boundaries are protection. They are the rules you create so your heart does not become a public space. Boundaries say, "I value myself enough to require clarity." They say, "I will not rush intimacy where trust has not been rebuilt." They say, "I will not sacrifice my peace just to feel wanted again." So when he reaches out, boundaries may look like not responding immediately. Boundaries may look like keeping conversations short and intentional. Boundaries may look like requiring accountability before emotional closeness resumes. And the key is this: you must enforce them without guilt. Because every time you bend your boundaries to keep someone comfortable, you abandon yourself. Every time you explain away disrespect just to maintain connection, you teach your nervous system that love requires self-betrayal. And that is not love, that is survival. A man who genuinely cares about you will respect your boundaries. He will not rush you. He will not pressure you. He will not make you feel guilty for needing time, clarity, or consistency. He will understand that trust was broken and that rebuilding it requires patience. But a man who only wants access will react negatively to boundaries. He will call you distant. He will say you've changed. He will try to rush the process. He may even try to guilt you by saying things like, "I thought you were different," or "Why are you making this so hard?" Pay attention to that. Resistance to boundaries reveals intention faster than words ever could. Ladies, you have every right to require more than a casual message. You have every right to say that if someone wants to be in your life again, they must come with consistency, honesty, and effort. That is not being difficult. That is being emotionally mature. And here is something most people don't realize. Boundaries don't push away the right person. They filter out the wrong one. The person who truly values you will rise to meet your standards. The person who does not will fall away. And either outcome protects you. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." The version of you that tolerated inconsistency is not who you truly are anymore. The version of you that begged for clarity is not who you truly are anymore. You have evolved, and evolution requires new rules. So when that message comes in and your heart starts racing, pause and remember this. Your self-respect is not negotiable. Your peace is not a bargaining chip. And your boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are filters to let the right love in. Stand firm. Stand grounded. Let anyone from your past understand that access to you is earned, not automatic. And if they are not willing to do the work, then let them go with clarity, not bitterness. Because protecting your peace is not selfish. It is sacred. And from that place of self-respect, from that grounded place where boundaries are honored, the next decision becomes even more powerful. Not rushing, not reacting, but choosing when, how, and if you will respond at all. One of the most powerful moves you can make in this moment is this. Take your time before you respond. Don't rush. Don't let adrenaline decide for you. Don't let nostalgia grab the steering wheel, because the first impulse is almost never wisdom. The first impulse is emotion trying to relieve discomfort, and relief is not the same as alignment. When you rush to reply, you give away leverage you didn't even realize you had. You tell him without saying a word that despite the silence, despite the confusion, despite the emotional cost, you are still immediately available. You teach him that absence has no consequence. And when absence has no consequence, it repeats. Taking your time is not a strategy to manipulate. It's a strategy to stabilize yourself. It's you choosing regulation over reaction. It's you refusing to let an old emotional trigger hijack the present version of you. Because this version of you thinks differently. This version of you pauses before opening doors. See, space creates clarity. Silence slows the nervous system. And when your body is calm, your mind can finally tell the truth. That's why this pause matters. It allows you to check in with yourself before checking in with him. Ask yourself quietly, without judgment. What did I feel when I saw his name? Relief, anxiety, anger, excitement, a mix of all of it. None of those feelings are wrong, but none of them should be in charge either. Feelings are signals, not instructions. They tell you something is happening internally. They do not tell you what to do next. When you take time, you interrupt the old cycle. The cycle where he disappears, reappears, and you immediately respond with openness before clarity. The cycle where hope rushes in faster than discernment. The cycle where your heart starts negotiating before your standards even enter the conversation. That pause allows your standards to catch up with your emotions. Ladies and gentlemen, silence has weight, and silence used consciously is powerful. Just because he broke his silence does not mean you are obligated to break yours instantly. His silence in the past came from avoidance, confusion, or lack of responsibility. Your silence now comes from awareness. Those two silences are not the same. When you don't reply right away, you shift the emotional dynamic. You show that your life has movement, structure, and meaning beyond this interaction. You show that you are not sitting still, waiting to be chosen. And that alone changes how you are perceived. But more importantly, it changes how you perceive yourself. Taking your time prevents emotional oversharing. It prevents long paragraphs that reveal vulnerability before trust has been rebuilt. It prevents explaining yourself to someone who hasn't yet earned that access. It prevents reopening wounds that are still tender. Sometimes the urge is to say everything, to finally ask all the questions, to finally express all the hurt. But expression without safety leads to regret. Not everyone deserves the raw version of your heart, especially not someone who once left it unattended. That pause allows you to decide how much of yourself you are willing to offer, if at all. And let's be honest, not every message deserves a response. Not every conversation deserves continuation. Time helps you see that. Time helps you realize whether you actually want to engage, or whether you're just responding out of habit. Ladies and gentlemen, if his intentions are real, time will not scare him away. Someone who is serious will not vanish because you didn't reply in 5 minutes. He will respect your pace. He will understand that trust cannot be rebuilt on urgency. He will remain steady, not reactive. But someone who only wanted quick validation will reveal himself quickly. He will grow impatient. He will send follow-up messages fishing for attention. He may pull away the moment he realizes he no longer has instant access. And that reaction is information, valuable information. Time filters people. It exposes who is emotionally regulated and who is emotionally impulsive, who is grounded and who is driven by ego, who was willing to invest and who only wanted reassurance. And here's the part most people don't talk about. Taking your time also gives you the chance to decide how you want to respond, not just when. You may realize that a short, neutral response aligns better than an emotional one. You may realize that clarity matters more than warmth. You may even realize that silence is the response. You don't owe immediacy. You don't owe emotional labor. You don't owe access. Respond when you feel centered. Respond when your body feels calm, not tight. Respond when your words come from self-respect, not longing. Let your response reflect the version of you that survived the silence, not the version that suffered in it. Because timing communicates boundaries. Timing communicates value. Timing communicates self-trust. And the one who truly values you will still be there when you choose to speak. The one who was only passing through will already be gone. And that outcome is not painful. It is protective. So take your time, like your peace depends on it. Because it does. When he finally reaches out after all that silence, you must understand this truth clearly. Not every conversation deserves your energy. Not every message deserves your time. And not every reappearance deserves a response. This is the moment where standards stop being ideas and start becoming actions. Standards are not what you say you want. Standards are what you enforce when emotions are involved. They are the invisible line that separates who gets access to you and who doesn't. And if you don't honor your standards in moments like this, you don't really have standards. You have wishes. It's easy to talk about self-worth when nobody is testing it. It's harder when the very person who once destabilized you suddenly shows up again, sounding familiar, sounding warm, sounding like a memory that still has weight. That's when standards matter most. So when that message comes in, you don't just read the words, you feel the alignment. You ask yourself quietly, does engaging in this conversation support the life I'm building now? Or does it pull me back into a version of myself I've outgrown? Because here's the truth most people avoid. Growth changes compatibility. Healing changes tolerance. Awareness changes attraction. The person you once longed for may no longer fit the woman you've become. And that doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. This is why standards must lead the interaction. Does he come with accountability or nostalgia? Does he speak with clarity or vagueness? Does he respect your pace or subtly try to rush intimacy? Does he acknowledge the silence or pretend it never happened? Standards listen carefully. Standards notice tone, consistency, and effort. Standards don't get hypnotized by potential. They stay rooted in reality. And you must also understand this. You do not need to justify your standards to anyone. You don't need to explain why you need time. You don't need to apologize for moving slower. You don't need to convince him that your boundaries are reasonable. The right person will not require persuasion to respect you. If someone questions your standards, it's often because they benefit from you not having them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where emotional maturity shows itself. Emotional maturity is not reacting. It's responding with discernment. It's knowing that just because a door opens does not mean you must walk through it. And sometimes the most powerful response is not a message at all, but a decision made quietly within yourself. A decision that says, I no longer engage in conversations that confuse me. A decision that says, I no longer entertain people who return without growth. A decision that says, I no longer sacrifice peace for familiarity. Carl Jung once said, where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, love is lacking. Pay attention to that. If the interaction feels like control, uncertainty, or emotional imbalance, that is not love trying to return. That is power trying to reassert itself. And you have outgrown that. Standards also mean understanding that closure does not always come from conversation. Sometimes closure comes from choosing yourself consistently. Sometimes closure comes from not reopening doors that cost you too much to close the first time. You may feel the urge to explain, to clarify, to finally be understood. But not everyone is capable of understanding you at your level. And explaining yourself to someone who has already shown you inconsistency often leads to disappointment, not resolution. Ask yourself this. If nothing changes after this conversation, will I be okay with that? If he disappears again, will this interaction disturb my peace? If the answer is yes, then your standards are telling you something important. Standards protect your future self. Remember who you became during the silence. Remember the strength it took to wake up every day without answers. Remember how you learned to self-soothe, to ground yourself, to find meaning outside of his presence. That version of you deserves loyalty. Don't abandon her now. Every time you compromise your standards, you are signaling to your subconscious that your personal growth was merely a fleeting phase. That internal message is far more destructive than any silence he ever inflicted upon you. Never forget that you have absolute permission to outgrow people. You are entitled to shift your perspective. You are allowed to determine that a situation no longer serves your highest good. And crucially, you do not need to create a scene to enforce that boundary. There is no need for grand announcements or attempts to prove him wrong. Sometimes, the most formidable display of strength is simply quiet detachment. So, if you decide to engage, make sure it comes from a place of alignment. Ensure your response is grounded. Make sure it is completely intentional. And if you choose to remain silent, let that decision stem from inner peace rather than fear or hesitation. Because the ultimate power does not lie in his return. It lies in your decision to let him stay or let him go. And that authority is yours alone. If this message hit home for you, drop the word calm in the comment section. Because calm is the ultimate form of power. Calm provides clarity. Calm is the tool you use to finally break those exhausting cycles. Subscribe right now if you are finished with confusion and are ready to embrace radical self-respect. Send this to a woman who needs this specific reminder today. Someone who has weathered the silence and is learning to respond with dignity rather than reaction. Your peace is sacred, Protect it at all costs.